I am so incredibly humbled, blown away, excited. I just don't even know what to say, because this is the womb of the room where my spirit and my heart were reborn 15 years ago. That song, Prayer in the Dark, was written when I first came to Unity of Nashville. Thank you for being my family, my tribe, and reseeding my heart and my dreams. I want to share with you the road that I've been on. My prayer is that it opens or touches your heart and inspires you in some way to do whatever it takes to love yourself and to chase and follow your dreams, those God seeds planted in your heart. My great-great-great-grandfather, Thomas Griffith Jones, came to the United States through Ellis Island from Wales. He came here escaping religious prosecution. He ended up making his way down to Ohio, where he became a leader and a Baptist minister, founding a school. My great-grandfather, Manuel Anaya Urbina, whose name I took, was born in Mapimi, Mexico in the late 1800s. He was called by God. You know that calling? That calling to be close to the divine. And so, of course, he made his way to the Vatican, crossed the ocean at 16 years old, went to Rome to become a priest. He was there for 2 years, and something happened. Something didn't work for him. Whatever it was, he left Rome, went back to Mexico. He left his faith. He left his family. He left his country. He crossed the border in El Paso in 1907 with nothing but a Bible in his hand. He ended up becoming the first Mexican Baptist minister, where he had his congregation in the west side of San Antonio, where I was born. I come from a lineage of faith and doubt, and a willingness programmed in me, in you, in all of us, to listen to that higher calling, to listen to that road calling us forward. I was born in San Antonio, Texas, like I said, bicultural. I have a beautiful brown daddy. I love his hands. I'm in love with my dad's hands and his heart. And a gringa, that means a white-ish mother in the late 60s, early 70s. It was not a safe place to necessarily be a Mexicana. My first memories were of incredible joy. Family gatherings, barbecues, mariachis rehearsed in our neighborhood. And we knew all of them. Country music, and again, a celebration of love, everybody being included, everybody joining in. When I feel back to those first years of my life, I feel such joy, and is why I sing with mariachis. But some things happen in a very short order. My parents were divorced. My dad went to Vietnam. I loved my dad. You can't tell. I just was totally into my dad, and he left for Vietnam. And I was told, Stephanie, you're not that brown. Don't tell anybody that you're Mexican. What? I don't understand. This is who I am. This is who we are. This is the joy. This is the love. Just don't tell anybody that you're Mexican. Right behind that, my person, my grandfather, my guy. We all had those people, right? He died. I remember standing there in the funeral home, seeing him there, and then lowering him in the ground and thinking, I remember I'm 4 years old. This is how kids are. He died. Well, if he died, I want to die because I want to be with my grandpa. That's what little kids do. We make these agreements at an age, right? Right there in 1 year, the formation, the filter of who and how I would not be able to love came into being. What I believed was nobody loved me. What I believed was I was abandoned. What I believed was that I was unworthy. Surely it was my fault that my parents divorced. It was a lot of pain to feel for a little kid who just felt so much joy. One gift that came from that pain was in my room crying. My heart awakened to my very first vision. Not just a vision you see, a vision I felt in every cell of my body. I saw myself on a stage and that the heavens were shining through me into a sea of people and coming back through me to the heavens. It was in me. It has never left me. I knew at 4 years old that I was to be a messenger of love. The only problem was I didn't know how to love. I kept living through learning how to put on masks, learning how to medicate so I could get by, so I could maybe make you love me. I would do anything for you to love me. Would you just love me? I was a walking wound, and I don't say that with any judgment. I say that with great compassion. That's how powerful that experience was that happened to me at 4 years old. You know what I mean? So life went on. I had successes. I had a natural gift to sing, and so I started singing in churches, and you should sing. And then I'm like, all right, maybe I can, maybe I will. And then I got a job as a singer in Austin, Texas. And we were in front of that sea of people, 5,000 people, and I froze. They had to escort me off the stage, and they had to let me go. See, I was right. I am not worthy. I am not lovable. Okay, God, that must mean I'm supposed to work in the music industry. During this time, my dad took me to Mexico. He came and got me when I graduated from high school and took me to Mexico. And I fell in love. Oh my gosh, I fell in love with these people. La gente. The food, the culture, the joy, the laughter, the dancing, the way they live, and the way they move. And they were shaped like me. I always wanted that blonde Barbie body. That's not the body I have. I have a body like a Mexicana. But I always wanted what I didn't have. I want to tell you a story about a little Mexican woman. She was my aunt, never met me. We go to her house. I can't understand what she's saying. Her hands are flying everywhere. Before we leave, and she's fed us well, she says, I have to give you a gift, my dad says, in Spanish. She goes to the bathroom, and she brings me a half a bottle of shampoo. That's what she had to give. That's what she gave. This is who I am. This is my culture. Don't you tell me not to be who I am. Now I'm getting mad. And so I get in my car and I head to Nashville, Tennessee. Where are the Mexicanos? Where are we? We're listening to country music. We're not anywhere. And so it's my mission to be a part of bringing this to the world, this joy, this love. And so I started writing songs. And it was during this time that my abuelita, my little grandmother, Virginia Urbina Jones, called me to her bedside as she was passing from this world to the next. She had a lot of things to say, believe me, like abuelitas do, grandmothers. She was talking to my grandfather on the other side. She was talking to me, and she said, "Mija, you are here to be a messenger, a mensajera." That means messenger. You are here to bring joy and music and celebrate our culture with the world. You're here. She said this right before she died. You're here to make country music with chili peppers. For real. I said, "Grandma, I can't. I tried. I don't have it in me. I can't." She says, "Mija, you will." Believe me, and many of you know, when someone speaks to you in that moment, you know to listen. I went back to Mexico on my own to connect to my heritage, to connect to my roots. And what happened? I met a little Mexican healer. What is this? I'd never even heard that word before. Have you heard that word before? A healer? She was a healer. She says, "Come to my house." So I went out to her house, and she did what many of us do now, breath work, drumming, music. And what happened during that session was so much of that pain that I'd had stored in my body all those years, like a lockbox of secrets, just like started coming out. I couldn't even believe it. I felt so free. I felt so connected to the divine within me. What is going on here? And I also connected back to my great-grandfather, Manuel Anaya Urbina. I think he was like, "Now you're in my country. I got some things to say. It is time for you, mija," which means little girl, to go back to Nashville and start making music. Again, I was fortified. I felt the fire, the sacred fire in my heart. Nothing was going to stop me. I came with my passion back to Nashville, and over 10 years chipped away, made 5 records, became a #1 artist in Texas, sang with Willie Nelson, traveled the world, all over the world, Japan, Switzerland, Sweden, Germany, Montreux Jazz Festival. And then the lucky break happened. The real lucky break. Little Big Town discovered me in Sweden, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, we need a Selena of country music." They brought me back to Nashville, took me to the record label, they signed me. Things were going, y'all. Things were happening. I was on the cusp of the magic. When one morning, my husband walked in the kitchen and said 5 words. "Stephanie, I don't love you anymore." I want to read something to you from that moment. What cracked within me on the kitchen floor that day was the ability for my mind to assemble and be okay. I was not okay. My pain and I plunged down a taproot of despair, playing broken records of the past I thought I'd transcended long ago. I did what broken does. I tried to dull the pain, but it was too late. I was a walking, wounded, haunted by feeling unworthy, unwanted, and filled with shame. I was a failure. Just like when I was a kid, I believed it was all my fault. I went the tried and true ways of medication, smoking, drinking, crazy thinking, but nothing could touch the firestorm in my heart. All that wasn't healed came up in a bonfire of regrets. Just like my grandfathers, great-grandfathers who'd come before, I had come to my crossroad, to my crisis of faith, to my desperation, and ultimately to my surrender. Within 2 weeks, everything that I had spent 15 years building went away. And I was in a very painful divorce with no dream to dream forward. The record label, the partners, the publishing company, gone. It was in that moment that I got a phone call from my dad, who was very worried about me. I am very willful, if you haven't noticed. There was no will. I could not get out of bed except for to feed my daughter Cheerios and set her down in front of the TV. Have you ever been there? Right? It was in that moment that I wrote Prayer in the Dark. My dad called me and said, Mija, you have to go back to church. You have to find your faith. You need to go to Unity of Nashville. And I walked through those doors 15 years ago and sat in these pews and cried for at least 2 months. It was coming for me. You know, Oprah has a saying that I don't know that I love it, but I believe it. She says, we don't get what we want. We get what we believe. I had built this dream on my faith, on my belief, but really underneath all of it was my belief that I was unworthy, unlovable, and unwanted. It was probably, second to my daughter, the greatest blessing of my life. How else would everything gone away so that I could just be emptied? I cried and grieved every loss that came before, and I believe generations before. I came here every Wednesday, every Sunday. I went to their house for the book studies, had the Course in Miracles. I was in therapy, and my heart was reseated at Unity of Nashville. These are the people. You are my tribe. I remember your hugs and handing me tissues 15 years ago. Thank you. Thank you. I came back to life. I let that dream I'd had that sometimes was a burden because I was so crippled with not feeling good most of the time. I had a teacher that said to me, Stephanie, you're really addicted to suffering. And I was. It's how I grew up. It's how I kept myself safe. I didn't have to go try something if I was suffering. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I started to weed through this bonfire of regrets, and I started feeling some joy, and I started feeling hope, And I started to feel my own love. And all these ideas started to become possible. Like maybe Charles Fillmore's right. Right? So after being here for about 18 months, I landed in some medicine wheel. Does everybody here know what a medicine wheel is? It's a place, it's a way that the indigenous used to pray. They would create a circle that had a cross in the middle of it. And there's all kinds of mythologies about it and stories, but ultimately it's a path of healing and transformation. So I took my prayers out to this medicine wheel and I met my husband, Jeremy Pager. Jeremy had helped my little brother when he had gone to treatment, and my little brother would call me and talk about this guy named Jeremy. I'm like, yeah, thank you, Jeremy. And then I met him, and the only reason I was open to talking to him was because he helped my little brother. We fell in love. Jeremy had been adopted into the Lakota tribe. His pain had found his passion and purpose by serving others. He was a sweat lodge poor. He carries all the rites of passage of the Lakota. He's a Toltec teacher. All those teachings from Don Miguel Ruiz of the Four Agreements. We're dreaming all the time. Intent is working all the time. And he was a firewalk instructor. I'd met my match. And so for the next few years, I took my pain to task in all these ceremonies and initiations, the sweat lodge, the temescal, the breath work. And what I found over and over again was those beliefs that I was unlovable were not just in my mind. I didn't have to just reprogram my mind or my heart. They were in my body, locked and loaded. So by the time I got to all these experiences, breath work, firewalking, I was able to rapidly transform those agreements. It was like they just started just coming off and out of me. What I found was that they needed my attention. It's like a screaming little girl at 4 years old, still in my body. Somebody love me. Doesn't that make sense? I mean, how many people do we know that have arrested development? And I don't mean that with any shame. I mean that that's what happens when we're in pain, when we get locked down in trauma, or even one moment. We get shut down and we are still a little kid or a teenager from that moment in our body. Through these sacred ceremonies and initiation, I went back and rescued, reclaimed, brought home that little 4-year-old. Do you know that by the time I turned 40, one of my friends said, "Oh my God, I have never heard you laugh in my life." Isn't that sad? It was true. I started laughing. It's like all that laughter was stuck down inside me. All of a sudden, I was a little girl with wide-eye wonder. And in my imagination, my husband Jeremy says, it's like a slot machine of dreams. Here they all come. All those dreams that I had as a little girl suddenly were coming true. I always wanted to travel the world. Small town Texas growing up. All of a sudden, I was being invited to lead spiritual pilgrimages all over the world. Africa, Egypt, Peru, connecting with the divine in each person that was coming, being their sacred witness and a minister of love in these sacred moments when someone finally comes to that place where they go, here it is. Here's the belief. I got it. We've been doing all this work now. I got it. I don't believe I'm lovable. We cry, we feel it, we honor it, and it's released. And in its place is love and transformation. Are y'all with me? Woo! I want to circle up and say, I was worth it. I wore so many people out, including my managers that are here. You are so worth it. You are so worth. If there is an agreement or a story or something that touches your heart and creates any discomfort, it's time to go. It's time to get to the heart of the hurt and release that pain so that you can live the promise of the freedom and the joy and the power that we are. We are so powerful. Miguel Ruiz teaches in the 4 Agreements, we are artists of life. Every day, every moment, every word is our ministry. We are painting a picture every moment. What is your masterpiece? And I don't even care if it's a mess. Well, bring it. Bring that mess. Turn it into a glorious masterpiece. I want to close with one more story. You just can't make this up. So, I kept chipping away. I decided maybe my grandma was right. Maybe I should start singing. By this time I was teaching, and Jeremy and I had started Freedom, Folk, and Soul, a transformational community of the healing arts, leading these pilgrimages and teaching and beautiful life. But I was still singing. But I had been in my sacred surrender. God, use me. Use me. I surrender. It was in this time, another time of without faith, without doubt. No faith, loss of doubt. And in this place, I got a Facebook message, the holy Facebook message. You know those? Out of nowhere, a message comes on Facebook to Stephanie Urbina Jones, my professional, which I don't always check, right? Are you Stephanie Urbina Jones? Yes, I'm Stephanie Urbina Jones. That's me. I'm actually answering this. He says, do you know Manuel Anaya Urbina? I'm like, that was my great-grandfather. He says, well, I found a Bible of his in an antique store in San Antonio from 1876. This was the Bible that Manuel carried to the Vatican, back and crossed the border and preached the gospel. Came to me. A sign, for sure. Keep going, mija. Keep going, y'all. I want you to know within a very short period of time, another miracle happened. And through the gift of Mr. Vince Gill himself, and a long story I won't tell you now, I was invited for the first time in the 93-year history of the Grand Ole Opry to bring the Heart of Mexico and mariachi to the Grand Ole Opry stage. It was and is amazing to bring joy to the world. More importantly, gratefully, maybe selfishly, what's really amazing is to feel love and to be loved in return. Thank you for welcoming me home 15 years later. Thank you for being my tribe. May you be touched and inspired. Dare to dream. Take on your masterpiece. Remember, as the ancient indigenous ones tell us, we are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the ones we've been waiting for. And we were born to love.